Hi, I'm Michel from MeanFi, and this is 26 Questions with Michel. I am a serial entrepreneur, and I've been in the business for a long time now. 2011 was my first crypto venture, and MeanFi and MeanFi are my last. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Michel, for joining in. I'm Mark, and I'll be your host for today. So the community is eager to ask you the 20 questions that they have prepared.
Right on. Let's do it.
So the first question that they have for you is, could you please tell us the story behind the name MeanFi?
I wish there was a fantastic story behind it, like, one of these, and that's how we arrived to it. But the reality is that we were just searching for something that was short and that had a .com name available. We didn't want to do anything of .net or .io or any of the other things, because I think that, we are in essence trying to bring as many people from the traditional finance world into here. And most people are used to businesses that are .com, most banks are .com, all of those things. So we're trying to find something that was catchy. We had 3 or 4 options to go through, and we landed on the Mean brand. And it also represents, we landed there because it represents also the spirit of the core team the most, kind of like unafraid, unapologetic. We like taking on big world problems, and it seemed proper and it seemed fitting.
Nice. Thank you for answering that. Moving on to question number 2. How many team members do you have? Do you have enough experience in the blockchain field? And do they have any experience on working in crypto and non-crypto projects?
Yep, the founding team, we're 5. Right now we are a total of 8, but the 5 that founded the company we've all worked together before. The previous company that we had the exodus into MeanFi was a real estate software company that was basically settling transactions on crypto. So anybody that wanted to have international capital deployed in American real estate, we would take that crypto capital, we would manage all of their escrow account, disbursement, distributions, like all of those things. So yeah, we've been working in crypto for a long time. And me in particular, like I said, this is my 3rd crypto venture. My very first one was all the way back in 2011, very, very early on in the business. And yeah, it's like we've been here for a long time, even before DeFi was a thing.
Awesome. Very well. Thank you for answering that. Moving on to question number 3. What's the most ambitious goal of your project? What is the ultimate vision of your project?
I think that 2 kind of important questions. I'm going to start with the first one. I think that from the goal perspective, not necessarily the vision, but from the goal perspective, money streams are at the core of everything we do, and making money streams the payment interoperability layer of DeFi and decentralized finance is the goal that we're trying to go for. Everything we do is inspired by our mission and our vision of being the financial equalizers for people and businesses worldwide. And money streams are a big component into making this a reality, because they are a much more fluid and capital efficient way to keep and transfer money. So when you start thinking about, what is the right way of me keeping my money in a self-custody way, you either have the option of keeping it in your wallet, and it is essentially the same as keeping it in your bank account, not very capital efficient. You're not actually making money off of your money. You're not growing your wealth by just keeping it in your wallet, sitting there doing nothing. In the case of the money streams, because you're moving your money on chain, and you are essentially allowing anybody to interact with it still in a way that you are the only approver and the only person that can decide where your money goes. You make your money essentially a lot more fluid, a lot more capital efficient, a lot more accessible every time that you want to use it. And that means that your money is working for you, even on your sleep.
So it's kind of similar to staking, or it's different?
No, it's different. So staking is one of the many ways in which you can invest your money. Money streams are a real-time settlement layer. So every time that you're going to move your money, it is moved in a more efficient way. So normally, if I wanted to move my money to you, I just make a transfer and you receive it immediately, right? But unfortunately, that only covers, if you really think about it, a very small set of use cases. For example, people today receive salaries twice a month simply because there isn't a better way to make that exchange. Every single employee relationship with their employer is one that the employee starts working, and you're essentially, so you start working on the 1st of the month and you work for free all the way until the 15th when you receive your first paycheck. You work for 15 days without receiving a dime from your employer, and then your employer decides to pay you. All right, that's the contract that everybody has established and everybody knows. However, if you think about it in different terms, what you're essentially doing is you are giving your employer a interest-free loan for exactly 15 days. And I don't know about you, but I don't get a whole lot of accessibility for zero interest loans anywhere. So on the flip side of that coin, what if you could start working immediately on every single second that you actually produce something, you get paid something back, right? That's what money streams enable, right? The same thing can be said, for example, for subscription services. Right now, we have a relationship where we pay Netflix preset number of dollars every month so that we can access their entire library, whether we see it or not. And they're doing it like that, and subscription services work like that simply because it is the easiest way to get some money in a recurrent basis, and because it's very difficult to charge exactly for the products that you consume. But if you were able to turn on the TV and say that you started watching a movie that turns out to be really bad, you didn't like it, and you stop after 5 minutes, why would you pay for the entire movie? Just pay for the 5 minutes that you saw. Conversely, that incentivizes and aligns a lot the content producers with the content consumers. And we as consumers will only pay for the things that we see. And if we watch an entire movie, then we pay for the entire movie. And if we watch only 5 minutes, then we only pay for those 5 minutes that we watch. And that's it. Like, problem solved. No more subscriptions. We simply open up a money stream between us and Netflix. And every time that we turn on the TV, we consume exactly the amount of content that we consume, we pay for that, right? So the use cases for money streams are very, very wide, and it sets up the framework for making payments super fluid and super capital efficient, where the value exchange is instant because you're paying for anything by the second. You can extend this to pretty much any subscription services that you can think of. You can extend that to pretty much any contract services that you can think of. Like, if I'm working for you in exchange of time, you can think of like paying for your parking meter. All right. So if you park your car in a parking spot in a city, like, the best that you can do is pay by the hour on an app, or pay maybe like in increments of 5 minutes or something like that. How about you just don't even have to open your app? You have a money stream open between you, the owner of the car, and the city. And every time that you park, your car gets registered. And if you're there 2.5 minutes, you pay for 2.5 minutes. And immediately when the car leaves, like, your parking spot is open, ready for somebody else to take it on. So again, like, money streams are all about capital efficiency, all about incentive alignment in between the producer and the consumer of the goods that is being paid for. And we think that's the future of payments. And that's what we're powering.
Cool. Yeah, I actually always had this concern when starting a new job, and then you wait for those 15 days. I was wondering if there was a better way to, make that happen, to have that partnership work out in a better, more fair way, so to speak. And that seems like it could be one of the possible solutions. And I just can't, I want to go ahead and start asking the questions that the community has, but I just want to clarify one little thing here. What industries are you particularly tackling first with money streams? Like, what is your emphasis?
Right now, we already open up money streams for consumers and retail investors. And the way that they are being used mostly in there for, like, individuals, that is to schedule payments and basically do DeFi automation. One of the good things about money streams is because they are a real-time settlement layer that have scheduling capabilities in it, meaning that you can do things to the future. We can power things that cannot be powered normally in blockchain or in DeFi in particular. If you think about this problem, right? If I wanted to send money to you right now, it wouldn't be a problem. I can just send it to you using a regular good old bank, okay? I can send you $100, not a problem. If I wanted to schedule $100 to be sent to you next Friday, not today, but next Friday, nobody thinks that's a big problem in traditional finance. You can open up your Chase or your HSBC or your Santander Bank, and all of them allow you to schedule payment into the future. However, if you try to think long and hard of a single DeFi application that allows you to schedule a payment into the future, that allows you to schedule a transfer into the future, you will be really hard pressed to find out that there's none.
Right.
And here we are promising the rest of the world that DeFi is the future of finance, and we cannot even do the very simple thing that everyday banking users do on their traditional banks. So we decided to start there because that gives us a lot of volume to test with, and that gives us a lot of different use cases that can be matured. And so we started with scheduled transfers. We followed up with dollar cost average on chain. So you're a retail investor, you can come in and we help you automatically swap, say for example, do workflows like I want to buy $50 worth of BTC every single week. The same way that you do on Coinbase or on Binance, like you basically set those recurring buys. You can do that with money streams because we are essentially a layer of automation on top of the blockchain. So we enable those two from the beginning. We allow recurring exchanges as well. We allow for remittances. So all of those things have to do with the retail aspect of it. So retail consumers and retail investors. Our next frontier is businesses. And that is for businesses that want to start bringing in crypto workflows into their own operation. So, for example, paying their employees using crypto or using a stable coin. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a token. It can be or a native asset. It can be a stable coin as well. So you can essentially configure 100% of your payroll with very little overhead, if none at all, only the first time, in the same way that I described it today here. Meaning, I am an employer, I set up my payroll treasury, is what it's called. And this is live, by the way. Like you can actually go today and start testing it. You can set up your payroll treasury and start opening up one money stream for each one of your employees at a different rate. So say, for example, employee number one receives $1,000 per month. Employee number two receives $500 per week. I don't know, it gets calculated differently, weekly versus monthly. So like all of those things can be done, and you can simply say go, and whenever they come in, you don't have to be doing like pro rata salary calculations, because essentially you're paying on every second. You remove a lot of the complexities that come from just running your payroll system, right? So going after, first, we're going to start with DAOs, because they are a lot more kind of like welcoming to crypto and to distributing assets in crypto. We're already working with multiple DAOs to make money streams the way that they distribute to their guilds and to the groups of people that are working for the DAO. And then we plan to move from there to small, medium businesses, and then on to bigger enterprises.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I must admit that that's something new within the cryptosphere. So it's I like it. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay, cool. Question number 4: can you share with us your tokenomics? How much is the total and circulation supply of your tokens?
The total supply is 210 million tokens. We're a very community-centric project, and that's reflected on the original design of the tokenomics. 70% of the total supply goes to the community and to the community treasury. And because we're a DAO, basically that's most of the funds get managed through the DAO. Then we have 10% allocated for token sale, and then 20% allocated for team and advisors. Now, in terms of circulating supply, right now we have about 2.2% of the total supply, which is about 4 million tokens circulating.
Okay, can you list 3 killer features of your project that make it ahead of competitors?
For sure, DeFi, recurring payments, and scheduled payments. Nobody has that. If you want to be able to schedule payments or set up like a family remittance for your loved ones on DeFi, you only have one option, and that's MeanFi. That's it. So that's us. So that sets us pretty apart. For sure, decentralized dollar cost average is another highlight of us. We make it extremely easy and very friendly to be able to set that up. We have an exchange online. So you just simply go to the exchange, and there's 2 tabs: one-time exchange or recurring exchange. You set up what do you want to buy, how often do you want to buy it, and you click OK, approve the transaction, pre-fund your DCA, and that's it. You go to sleep. Every so often you're going to get a little bit of that swap going on. The last part will probably be the payroll and treasuries for company, payroll and treasuries management, and that kind of like is what I explain on that today. You can set up treasury, and whether you want to set up a treasury for making payments and payroll, or you want to set up a treasury for distributing assets or tokens to your investors, or whether you want to set up a treasury because you simply want to manage a multi-sig of funds and investor funds that you want to be able to deploy and allocate capital in a safe way that gets distributed gradually over time. All of those things are very, very easy to set up. Again, like you don't have to be a programmer, you don't have to be like none of those complicated things. Like there's not a single line of code that you need to open up or write or in order to make that happen. So all of those things, by the way, powered by money streams. if it wasn't clear before.
Yeah, okay, cool. That sounds cool. Question number 6. What gives the value of Mean and what is the role of it in your ecosystem?
Yeah, the primary role is that Mean is a governance token first and foremost. So in that structure, 70% of the voting power, of the Mean power, comes from token holdings. So that's a big chunk of what entitles you to vote for Mean improvement proposals. The other 30% has to do with our merit and reputation system, essentially how much you have contributed and how much you contribute often into the DAO. Now, in terms of like the actual utilitarian value of the token beyond the voting aspect, you can be a liquidity provider and get fees from liquidity pools. We are right now, so the token is available for different dexes, and it's soon going to be available in MEXC as well. So you can also do liquidity mining, farming rewards. You can do staking and locking. We're going to be opening staking and locking in January, very, very soon. So that allows you to stake your Mean. And if you decide that you want to get additional rewards, you can stake it for longer period of time and basically lock it up for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, or 48 months. And depending on how long you lock it, you get additional rewards bonus depending on that timeline and additional voting incentive as well. We also pay out a lot of revenue sharing. So all the revenue that comes through the DAO gets distributed out into the stakers of Mean token. So it is an additional revenue line that Mean holders can enjoy.
Is this project only for elite investors? How about others with small funds? Is it open to everyone?
Yes, it is quite the opposite for elite investors. I mean, we're very much a community-based project. Our IDO and the way that we run our IDO is the very proof of it. If you look at our tokenomics, again, 70% allocated to community. If you look at the IDO, it was very focused on fairness, strong anti-whale, anti-bot stance, the way that we designed the whole thing. So for example, just to give you some ideas, most projects that have done IDO in the DeFi space lately, most of them end up with like 2,000 contributors, and the average contribution per contributor is somewhere in the tune of like $25,000 per contributor. Yeah, they raise a ton of capital, but every single contributor is like, you have to be a big fish in order to be able to contribute, $20K per project. And that's the average, okay? So like that means that there's like very big players that are coming into your round and very small players, and somewhere in the middle is where that is. Our mean or median actually on contribution size was just shy over $350. That means that, and we had like 4,000, so twice as many people have very low margins. I'm not saying that everybody can come up with $350, but
more available.
You can see the difference. It's a lot more available for everybody, and it was a lot more available for everybody. So the way that, and we tried to keep like whales at bay. We had a lot of tech to prevent big swings at us during the IDO phase, and I think we accomplished that with flying colors.
How do you prevent whales from, taking swings at you?
Very good question. So if you look at our IDO design, when we launched, we IDO just a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. And the way that we designed the IDO was such that if you wanted to contribute a lot, you had to contribute early when the price of the token was higher. So if you wanted to wait, you could, and there was a curve, there was a bonding curve for what was the maximum contribution that you could come at. And that bonding curve will like lower very, very drastically. If you wanted to contribute, if you wanted to wait until the price of the token was cheaper, then that means that, okay, you can wait, but that also means that you can only contribute up to like $2,000, right? So you cannot go above that threshold. That's a way to essentially, disincentive, and we never allowed more than 50K contribution, USDC contribution into the IDO. So, yeah.
Okay, makes sense. It seems like you are a system containing a lot of products and ideas. How do you plan to make it work together? Quite a generic question, but maybe you have a straightforward answer for that.
We have one idea, actually, not too many. When people think about, for example, like a bank, okay, you don't think, oh my God, the banks are so complicated. They have too many ideas. Like, how are they going to control themselves? Like, nobody thinks that way. Ultimately, we would like for people to think of us in the same light as they think about a bank, simply a bank that is for you, that is self-custody, trustless, permissionless, that you are in control of the things that you have access to. It is true that there are a lot of different protocols that have very niche type of customers and very narrow value proposition. Ours just happens to be a little bit wider for a little bit of a wider audience because we're going after the people that commonly use banks every day and everyday banking. We're not designing a product for the professional investor with derivative trading and, stabilized algorithmic stable coins like that. I mean, all of those are phenomenal products. It's just not what we're doing, right? So we have a very strong focus on the user experience. We have a very strong focus on being able to migrate the workflows that you normally do on traditional banking and traditional finance over into the DeFi world. And to that end, we already have all of our products working together. I mean, everything we do has a big emphasis in the ease of use. And for example, our account explorer already directly connects to the exchange. If you're looking at the account explorer and you have no balance on any of your assets, we'll invite you to, hey, you know what? This is how you can get some balance in here. Either transfer it and you can scan directly from there, or it will take you to the exchange so that you can, swap some of your assets for that other asset. If you are, for example, in your money streams and you just initiated money stream, you can very much go into the accounts explorer and you will see the money streams showing on the top. So money streams and transfers that are powered by money streams are already connected to the account explorer, and the account explorer connected to the exchange, and all of the pieces are working together in there. The same thing happens for the treasuries and the multi-sigs and the payroll and everything that has to do with organizations. All of that works together very well. If you are an organization, for example, you're receiving a salary that was done through a payroll on our system. I mean, you're literally sitting up in your payroll treasury and you open up a money stream to yourself. You might be the treasurer on behalf of the company and acting on setting that up, but you are yourself the one that receives salary. And you set yourself one money stream to yourself for your salary. You go to your account explorer, the one for your personal account, and you will see the salary there coming in, tick, 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 every second. So everything is very interconnected and very well integrated. It will continue to be so like that. One of the key things that I think I want to denote is that because we are bridging a lot of these more complex services that exist, that are done by phenomenal protocols already, we are in many ways common point and an integration point for all of those different services that come and that we're surfacing through MeanFi. So we have partners with Solrise. They have fund management. So if you want an active fund management strategy, you will be able to access that through MeanFi, but it's not us implementing that. It is us leveraging that partnership that we have with them on that angle. We have partnership with Port Finance. That's a borrowing and lending protocol. So if you want to put your assets to work, you'll be able to do through MeanFi, but you're essentially leveraging the technology that Port Finance have developed there, right? So there's a lot of those things that are connecting behind the scenes to make things simpler. But yeah, we're very much an integration point for everybody to access the best and the rest of DeFi through MeanFi.
Got it. Makes sense. Does your project think that more real world use cases will emerge for NFTs as time goes on? And why should we take NFTs seriously? And since NFT is popular nowadays, is there a plan for NFT integration?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have no plans on offering an NFT marketplace per se, like where you buy and sell NFTs type of deal. Most marketplaces really think of, for the most part, art or collection type of exchanges or place or marketplaces. NFTs go way, way beyond the collectible aspect of it, and they are a key part of the crypto ecosystem as a whole. I mean, I think that NFTs are about to become, in 2022, one of the key building blocks for the growth of DeFi in a big way. And you can start to see some of the other non-collectible things from NFT already starting to take shape. For example, you can think of giving membership access or membership NFT to an NFT holder so that they have access to specific features, or that they get priority line in support, or that they get a different membership level that gets validated every time that you interact with a particular app, or that you have an NFT on a collective guild. Like, for example, you have, say, that 2 or 3 projects or protocols partner up together and they share the benefits on a single NFT. So as you move from one to the other, you can track the movement of your assets because it is a way to essentially identify you, to prove that you have participated in that particular exchange. So to kind of like go back to the original question, if the question is related to like the collectible side of NFTs, we do have some very interesting projects that are more like charity or charitable type of projects that are going to be doing with the collectible side of the NFT. We have a very thriving community of artists and creators that are always doing like new content and new stuff. And yes, there's a fun aspect of that. And we're going to be doing something there. But from the operational things on the NFT, 100% for sure, we're going to be doing things that are operationally NFT based, but not collectible art NFTs type.
Yeah, makes sense. Can you tell us more about your money stream? What are the use cases? Well, you already covered that one. If you feel like adding something more, we can do that. If not, we can just move on to the next question.
I think we've been covering that quite a bit.
Okay, cool. Do you have any bug bounty to check for weakness? In what way do you plan to make your project more complete?
We do not have officially a bug bounty program yet, but we are about to launch one. We have a lot of individual community members contribute and help the project become, more secure, and they report consistently through our channels, but we don't have a formal bug bounty program yet. We are right now working with 3 different security firms to continuously audit and maintain our smart contracts as they evolve. When we launch the 2.0 version, which is like right around the corner, we're going to be launching that bug bounty program as well.
Okay, thanks for that. Question number 12, how does the patchwork of ever fiercer crypto regulations affect a project's effort when it comes to promotion and advertising strategies? And how is your marketing approach different at MeanFi in comparison to previous experiences? Yeah, basically, your advertising and marketing strategies, if you have, what's your take on that basically?
Being a DAO is somewhat a little bit different from the decision-making standpoint on like what do we say and how do we put ourselves out there, because it's not centrally controlled by anyone. To give an example, in a completely like volunteering basis, our community has decided to record pretty much all the AMAs that we do, and they open up a YouTube channel and they posted things in the YouTube channel. There's nothing that I can do to prevent that, right? So like it is a community-based project. Like members of the DAO are not employees that need to answer to us in any shape or form. That, however, doesn't mean that we are immune as a community and as a DAO to international laws and regulation. And as software makers that we are on the DAO, because like, mind you, we don't offer any financial services at all. We are a product DAO. And what we make is products or tools that help people access the financial services that the rest of the universe offers, okay? We are no different than, for example, a wallet maker, all right? So if you have a wallet maker, it's made of leather, all right? And whether you put a adulterated credit card in it or a real one, or you have a fake dollar bill or a real one inside of it, it's not the business of the wallet maker. The wallet maker simply has a place for you to put money and plastic cards on. And that's what we are, a wallet maker. We are not the actual credit card or the actual debit card or the actual thing. So from a legal standpoint, I think that we're pretty chilled there. And as wallet makers that we are, or software makers, we abide every single international law and local laws where we operate. Then we don't offer any financial advice or financial services or financial anything of any kind. And because everything we do is 100% permissionless, 100% trustless, it's self-custody. So we're never in control of anybody's fund at all.
All right. So question number 13, liquidity, transaction fees, and slippage are always important factors in finance services. How does MeanFi solve the above problems to attract users? I guess what the person is referring to is like high transaction fees, right?
So it is important to kind of understand how liquidity is provided in a decentralized environment. And that is unlike a centralized exchange where you have a central limit order book and there is market making live from people basically submitting orders to buy and submitting orders to sell. In a decentralized world, we have this thing called AMMs, automated market makers, and they're essentially like big pools of money that the people deposit money in as one side of the pool, and as one person, any person that wants to swap, wants to withdraw liquidity or wants to essentially swap one token for the other one, it withdraws liquidity from the pool, therefore making it imbalance, and the pool needs to like rebalance itself by adjusting the price element of it. right? The problem is that AMMs, or automated market makers, are siloed for the most part. So in other words, like if you have, say, take for example, and I'm going to talk industry-wide, not Solana specific, Uniswap. Uniswap is a siloed AMM. Uniswap is probably the largest AMM that everybody knows. You can go to Uniswap and you can swap BTC for ETH, not a problem. Okay, they have a pool for that, and you can make that swap. If you want to swap, token X to token Y, and that pair specifically doesn't exist, essentially what they do is what sometimes called routing. You hop from one pool to you swap from X to B, and from B to C, and from C to D, like all in one transaction. And that's the way that AMMs work. They are a key building block to everything we do in DeFi, but they have a big drawback. They are silo liquidity. In other words, the liquidity that is parked in Uniswap does not talk to the liquidity that is parked in Balancer, or the liquidity that is parked on Curve, or the liquidity that is parked in Orca or Radium or any other AMM. So all of those are basically little islands where you can go as a trader and say, well, I want to swap in Uniswap, without knowing what the price is on the other islands. If you decide that you want to change and I want to go and swap on Radium, you don't know what the price is on any of the other islands, any of the other AMMs. How do we solve that? By aggregating the liquidity across the entire ecosystem. So essentially we stand one layer above that, and we, in real time, as you are going to get a quote to swap token A for token B, we go and ask all of those AMMs at the same time, hey, can you give me a rate? Can you give me a quote for this thing that the user is trying to do? And the other one, can you give me a quote? 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 All of them is happening in real time, just like that. As you enter, I want to swap 100 ETH or whatever, however many BTCs, like we go and we ask all of the AMMs, give me your quote. And then once we receive the quotes, we start sorting them out and offering you the best rates, the ones that essentially give you the most value for the input that you're given. So if you have 100 ETH or $100 and you want to buy ETH, the ones that outputs the more ETH is the one that we're going to present to you first. You can also change it if you want, but by default, we give you the best rates across all of the different liquidity pools that are available across all the different AMMs in the ecosystem. So I actually don't think it makes sense to do any kind of exchange in DeFi unless you do it through an aggregator like us, because it's impossible for a human to optimize slippage, fees, and all of the complexities that come from evaluating an AMM. It's not only about slippage and fees. The price impact is huge, and depending on if one pool has $500,000 worth of liquidity and the other one has 5 million, the price impact of you swapping in the 5 million pool is going to be negligible compared to the one. It's like a 10x. So that means that, even though the smaller liquidity pool may have smaller fees, the ultimate result of you swapping there are actually worse for you than if you just go and try to swap on the more stable, bigger pool that has a lot more liquidity, that has higher fees, but the price impact is going to be minimal. Therefore, between you swapping your first dollar to the last one that you're going to be putting there, the total value of ETH that you might get back, or SOL that you might get back, or BTC, or whatever it is that you're swapping that you get back at the end as a result of the entire swap, is better, is higher if you do it on the big one than if you do it on the small one. So it's not only about, the fees are better here than there. You have to run the entire transaction, run a simulation, understand what is the actual result that is going to come back after. It's very complex, and we solve all of that for you in a very simple interface.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. That is it only about comparing fees? Because, for example, MetaMask has aggregator that it's similar. When you want to swap, right, it just gives you a list of options that on this DEX you will get this amount of fee and that amount. So yeah, at first it kind of sounded similar, but then when you explained the other factors that are taking in when calculating those fees and everything else, then yeah, it will make definitely a difference. It's not only about the fee. Great. So how do you plan to promote your project in different countries where English is not well spoken? Do you have a local community for them to better understand your project?
Good question. So right now, the application natively supports 4 different languages. We need to do a better job there, proven by the fact that our community has created tutorials in 20 languages rather than 4. So like there's a huge gap in like what the app actually supports and what the community has been wanting and asking. So 20 languages is a lot of languages. And one of the things that there's a goal for Q1 2022 is definitely add support for additional languages. We're trying to make that a little bit more community contributed and community driven, because it's really difficult for a team that we don't have enough expertise in a specific language. Some of these languages are like really obscure that we just happen to have a community there. It's not like, like a big worldwide known language. And we basically have to make some efforts there. We are already, from the goal setting perspective, some languages have stood out as like more needed than others because of the vibrant communities that we have there. And those are Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. We don't have those yet translated. We already have Portuguese, Spanish. We have English, Spanish, Portuguese, and I'm missing the 4th now, French. So yeah, English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese are the 4 that are available right now. And the next ones that we're probably putting a little bit of like additional effort is going to be Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. And in those 3, we're probably going to put together a flow for the community to be the ones that contribute to those translations. Yeah.
Great. How secure is your smart contract code? Did you ever audit it via any third party?
We audited a previous version of our contracts, but the code is changing like all the time. The code is not something that you say, oh, well, it's audited and therefore I get the green check mark and off we go. Being audited doesn't mean a whole lot really. And projects also kind of like abuse the whole auditing thing, and people trust way too much in the auditing process. I can tell you there isn't a single major auditing firm that has not had a project getting hacked or with some major leak after they audit them. So right. Not a single one. You can like give me any name and I'll give you the project where they missed the boat like in a big way. So I think that, we have to keep that in mind and not be complacent with the fact that, oh, the project is audited, therefore it must be okay. Like it's not. Security is snapshot moment in time. It's something that you do continuously. When we have major versions of our smart contracts, we do like to run a static audit because there's like a big key milestone that probably a lot of code was changed from the previous major version to this one. And in between minor versions updates, what we have is we have a lot of security processes in place. Things like unit testing, peer reviews, regression testing, a lot of those things, community. So you'll be surprised how many bug submissions we have through the community.
As if it's your team working on it, right?
99%, I would say, of all of the reports have come basically from the community. Like the community being just reporting, hey, I noticed this over here. Can we make it better? Yep. Okay. Like we're basically taking all of that in and iterating over the product over and over and over and making it better and better and better. By now, we have gone through several dozen iterations of the smart contracts. And, even like recently we discovered a bug in smart contract, the use of the smart contracts until we get those fixed. Those are common occurrences in software applications. And yeah, it's part of the everyday. Like we work right now with 3 different firms again, but those audits only come on major versions, not minor versions.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point regarding that the code is something that it's a dynamic thing. It's not static. And yeah, people basically give way too much meaning to auditing at a given moment. So yeah, that's a very good one. I like it. Question number 16, which projects has MeanFi partnered with or looking forward to partner with? You mentioned a couple of in the beginning when we opened up, maybe you have more to add.
Yeah, we're really lucky and fortunate to have some major partners in DeFi and specifically in Solana, which is our home base. We partner with 2 of the 3 major wallets. Some of the names that kind of come to mind I already mentioned, Solrise, Port Finance. So Solrise is a index fund management with decentralized operations, active management from actual people. You have Port Finance is a full suite of money market products, borrowing and lending type of things. We have Selenium, they're a launchpad, major launchpad in Solana. We have Jupiter, we have UXD, we have Marinate Finance, we have Synthetify. I mean, like the list of partners kind of like go very wide. We work with a lot of them very closely. And we have a very busy 2022 with many planned integrations. These things kind of like come little by little, and we have a full deck already for 2022 full of integrations and new product features that are going to be possible because of those partnerships that we have. In particular, if I have to think about areas where we don't have very strong long-term partners that we need to expand to, that would be derivative markets and stables, more stables. We're going to be bringing UXD to the platform, and that is an algorithmic stable coin, which is phenomenal. They're doing like delta neutral position for establishing their algo on the stable, but we want to bring like more options into our users as well. We think like stable coins are going to continue to play a very important and key role in ensuring and continuing the growth of DeFi. So more options equals better options.
Exactly. Okay. Question number 17. Does using your application require KYC? If so, what are the advantages over non-KYC?
No KYC, no login, no limits.
I guess that says it all. Question number 18. How do you envision people using MeanFi in the future? You touched upon that quite extensively. Maybe there's some other things that you haven't mentioned you want to add.
I think mobility is going to play a key factor in winning over the masses and the key kind of retail banking users and retail investors. You've seen applications like Robinhood and Coinbase kind of like dominate the retail arena. And that is because they have a very friendly, easy to use mobile experience, which is where most people like land on first on these applications. Having to open up a big browser with complicated stuff, I think is not ideal. Somehow DeFi, because of the way that you are your own self-custodial of your funds, we have kind of like in DeFi gone in a little bit of a different direction where the wallets themselves are kind of like the gatekeepers. So instead of opening up, each application has their own mobile app. The wallets act as that like middleman. You download the app of the wallet and then you access applications through that wallet. However, I think long-term, that is not a good solution. It's kind of like a subpar experience because you're trying to get the minimum common denominator across applications for defining your entire experience. And applications that have a lot of moving parts and a lot of complexities and that are trying to hug or to get their users to feel at home, whether they are on a mobile browser or on the web, the experience kind of gets a little bit broken because of that. So I think that there's a lot of just industry maturity that needs to happen from the mobility standpoint in DeFi. We are not there yet as an industry. We're still figuring things out. And I think that for us in particular, mobility is going to be a key element to be developed in the future. It comes with a bunch of different challenges, especially because we're a DAO, and having a mobile solution requires a mobile developer to identify itself with the app stores, for example, for distribution. So who's going to identify itself? Like at that point, we become kind of like we're actually offering something that is like, I mean, you know, it's a little bit different from what we have right now on the web. So some challenges to go through there, but yeah, all of these are things that are front and center in our minds and that we're looking to tackle in the not too far distance.
Cool. Question number 19. According to the roadmap, what is your most important next priority? One of the priorities that you just mentioned, but maybe there's something more important that you have in mind.
Yeah, we have so our roadmap consists of 5 different stages. They all start sequentially and get delivered sequentially, but some of them run in parallel. Right now, we are running in parallel stage number 1 and stage number 2. Stage number 1 was all about consumers. Stage number 2 is all about investors, called Hayek. So we're in the Hayek stage right now, and we are in the midst of the development of all the features that we want to make whole for investors to feel at home. Essentially, we are coming to the tail end of the stage 1 in the next month or so. So as stage 1 kind of like winds down, which is everything related to being able to have self-custody of your money, being able to transfer it, schedule things, like be able to just move your assets the same way that you move them in the traditional financing arena. I think we're pretty close to get to wrapping up that chapter, but we are still halfway through the development of the things that we need to do for investors. And what that means is that we have to still give more capabilities for retail investors to be able to very simply say, well, I have this much money in my wallet. How do I deploy that capital to make it more capital efficient, right? Do I put it in my online treasury so that I can manage it better? Do I want to invest in a lending protocol? Do I want to borrow against my assets and borrow additional stables so that I can move them around and make some yield where I'm doing that? Do I want to buy some specific coin and stake it? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and those decisions are not always easy. For example, lending and borrowing protocols are a ton. There's a lot of them. And if you have a single asset that may have a varying APY on return on each one of those, say for example, that you're looking at 4 different borrowing and lending protocols. If you decide that you want to say lend out your BTC, okay, and you have 4 options to do that, there's only going to be one that is the best option at any given moment in time. The problem is that one that is the best option, like right this minute, in 5 minutes might be the worst option, because that APY is changing a lot, and it depends on what is the total number of deposits, what is the total number of borrows that you have there. So it is virtually impossible today for an investor to always be invested in the best option for whatever it is that they choose. And we're working right now on some solutions that will allow you to automate that and say, well, I have a pool of 4 borrowing and lending protocols, and I have, one BTC that I want to lend out. Please, MeanFi, optimize my lending options across these 4 different borrowing and lending protocols. And MeanFi will automatically say, well, let's see, where is it generating the best yield? Oh, it's here, protocol number 1. We're going to deploy your capital over there. And the minute that some of the other ones start earning higher yields than we are, we move it out of there and we put it in the other one without you having to touch or do anything. That is very powerful, and it's not available today anywhere in DeFi. So that's what we're working on, and that's our next major, from the delivery standpoint, that's where we're going. And our next roadmap that is starting right now, or that is starting very soon, is everything to do with the business side. So the payroll, treasuries, all of those things that we already covered. We already have many of those features available, but they are very generic, and there's still a lot of work that mentally, especially non-DAO companies or companies that are not in crypto, need to go through to understand what is actually happening. So we need to do a better job at building that bridge and doing that hand-holding for companies that come from traditional finance to be able to use those products effectively. A lot of work will go into that as well. Which
is the usual struggle for any project out there in the crypto space. That's true. Okay, and the last question for today that I have for you from the community is, where can I get the latest updates or more information about the project? Yeah, the best thing to do is to follow us on Twitter. And if you want to become active, so if you want to get notifications, what's happening, follow us on Twitter. Mm-hmm. If you want to become more active in the project and actually contribute and get things a little bit early on and be part of the discussion and the participation, I highly encourage you that you join our Discord server. Both links are on the official website, meanfi.com. Yeah, you can access it right there. Yeah, guys, and we're also going to put it in the description of this video, so make sure to check it out there as well. Okay, that wraps it up, our first section where the community is asking you the 20 questions. Now, if you have your 6 questions ready for the community, please go ahead. All right, so the questions that I had for the community were, what's the difference between MeanFi and Mean Protocol? Question number 2, what % of the tokenomics of Mean are allocated to the community? Question number 3, name 1 innovation brought by MeanFi. Question number 4, what type of tokens can be streamed using money streams? Question number 5, why was MeanFi developed in Solana versus, for example, Ethereum? What are the benefits? Why did we pick Solana? And question number 6, how is the MeanFi exchange better than any other individual DEX? Nice. Michel, thank you so much for asking the questions to the community. Guys, if you'd like to win additional rewards, you can simply answer these 6 questions down in the comments below, and we will pick the lucky winners. Also, if you saw your question among the 20 questions that I asked Michel, that means you are also the lucky winner, and you can claim your rewards by following the instructions in the description box. That's it for today, pretty much, Michel. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I had a pleasure, and you provided plenty of insight into the project, and MeanDAO, and MeanFi, and Mean Protocol all basically are on the rise for a better, brighter future in the crypto space, and you're doing something unique that has never been done before. So thank you for all that awesome information. And yeah, guys, make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.